Bridges are stronger when built from both sides.
Let's connect.
Let's connect. In the middle.
Hello and welcome to Building Bridges, a show on the Greensboro Television Network that highlights ways members of the public and members of the Greensboro Police Department can connect with each other. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. On today's program, we'll talk about a topic that is of interest to many people and is often misunderstood, and that's police oversight. What happens when a person files a complaint about an officer? How is it investigated? What options does a complainant have? And how do we trust that the police are properly policing themselves? Well, these are some really tough questions, and we will discuss them today and more on today's program. Joining me now are Sergeant Anthony Price from the Greensboro Police Department's Professional Standards Division and Ms. Jacqueline King, a member of the city's Police Citizen Review Board. Welcome to the show, both of you. Thank you. I want to start with the first topic that we would all want to know about. I've never heard of a police standards department division. Right. What in the world is that?
Well, most people call it internal affairs.
Okay, well, I've heard that.
Yes, and so we actually changed our name to kind of modernize it and give it a more professional name. So we go with professional standards, and basically what we do is investigate misconduct by our officers, and that can come from a wide variety of things. Basically what we do is we receive complaints from the citizens and also internal complaints, and we look at those complaints and investigate them and see if there's any misconduct that has occurred.
Give me an example. When you say complaints, what kind of complaint?
Okay, so our most common complaint is courtesy, and that comes in from the public. And there's a wide variety of ways that you can contact our office. You can get on the City of Greensboro website, go to the police, there's a police block, and then when you click on the police link, it will bring up a place where you can file a complaint. You can call our office at 373-2468. You can tell a supervisor. So there's a number of ways you can file a complaint.
So now when you say courtesy, what do you mean? Tell me exactly what you mean.
Okay, so basically if an officer, we'll use a traffic stop. An officer stops a vehicle, and let's say you feel as though he's rude or discourteous, talks to you in a certain kind of way that you don't feel is appropriate, that you would file a complaint. And then once we get that complaint, all of our officers, or at least our patrol officers, have body-worn cameras. Now soon we all will have cameras, which is great for both the public and us. And we'll investigate the complaint and see if if the officer is courteous or not. And when we do that, there's certain layers. So basically courtesy is investigated at the division level, but even if it comes in our office, once we write it up, we'll send it up through the chain of command, and our chain of command is the people that we report directly to. So that would be our lieutenant, our captain, and then the deputy chief. And you'll send the complaint through the deputy chief. And in internal affairs, we don't say whether or not an officer is courteous or discourteous. We just say, here is what the complainant said, or the citizen, and here is what the officer said. And we let their chain of command, their supervisors, make the decision.
So it goes on a record for them, is that right?
Yes, it goes, even if it's not sustained. And we have, I guess the next question is, well, what is sustained? So we have 4 different clearance codes, or adjudication codes. One is sustained. That means the allegation that you brought against an officer happened or took place. The other is not sustained, which means there's not enough one way or another to determine whether or not the allegation took place. Then there's exonerated, which means the allegation, what you alleged, took place, but he acted lawfully and within our laws and regulations. And then it's unfounded, which means that what you're alleging didn't even take place.
Good grief. So how many of these do you get a year?
So for calls we go on about 220,000 calls for service a year.
Good
So
grief.
that's calls for service that officers go on. Of those calls, we receive 81 citizen complaints. And so we tend to think we're doing pretty good at 81. I mean, that's like 0.05% of the number of calls to service for complaints we get. And then we really do a good job of policing ourselves, because not only are those citizen-generated complaints, but internal complaints are at 72. So that's where another officer complains at another officer for misconduct.
Good grief, you've got your hands full.
Yes,
No,
yeah.
How many people are in your department?
We're just under about 800. We're right around 700 and some, sworn and non-sworn. Got about 600 and some change sworn.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But I guess obviously you need that kind of
Right.
personnel. You know, we've just talked now about the professional standards. That's what it's officially called, right? But what about the Police Citizens Review Board? What does that play in this, Jacqueline?
Right. So the Citizens Review Board, the Police Citizens Review Board, after the complaint is found not to be accurate, or they've decided it wasn't as so, the defendant, I guess, or the citizen has 30 days to file a complaint with the Citizens Review Board. And that will go to the city. And then after that, the city has 60 days to investigate that. That's interviewing people and witnesses. And after that, if he finds that he couldn't find anything, it would come to us, and our body would get the case ahead of time. We'd get a chance to review it, and then we would come together, watch any video or audio, and then discuss it, and then make a determination on whether we think that it was justified or needs further investigation.
It sounds like you are very busy with what you do. Tell us what the Police Citizens Review Board is.
Okay, so it's a group of volunteer citizens that are selected by the chair of the Human Relations Department. And Zach Engel was very thorough in selecting the citizens. We had to go to meetings, and he had to get a feel for what, your interest was and why, and your commitment. And after that, he appointed the members of the Police Review Board, and we're all volunteers. So it's something that everyone has a passion for, serving the community and helping the police at the same time.
The officer here just said that, what did you say is a major? Courtesy. So is courtesy the major complaint that you deal with?
A lot of it is courtesy, and some of it is just I think it's just misunderstandings. Maybe the person just took it the wrong way, or the officer could have been having a bad day. But one of the things that's really important that I have found is that a lot of the people that are filing complaints have mental disabilities, which is something that's a passion for me. So I think that that's the biggest challenge that the police department would have, is dealing with people with mental disabilities.
And so, saying all that, I would imagine that some of the same people complain over and over again.
I've never seen a duplicate case.
Oh, well, good. Yeah. So that's not true then. So how many cases do you handle? Because all that you handle, you don't necessarily get a hold to, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so how many are you handling?
And it really varies. When I first got on the board, we could do maybe 5 cases, and which is a long day for us. Lately, we've been getting about 1 or 2. So it seems to be some improvement.
Why is that?
Well, I think obviously I feel really strong about the investigators in our office, our leadership that we have in our office. We try really hard to, it's important that we're investigating misconduct of police officers, and it's important for the public to trust the police department. And in order to do that, we have to be thorough in our investigations. And so while it's your right to let the Police Citizens Review Board know if you don't agree with the findings, if we're thorough on the front end, I like to think it would make their job a lot easier on the back end in terms of answering questions that were going to come up later on. So we've really strived really hard just to be really thorough, try to talk to all witnesses, all complainants, anybody that has any information as it relates to any allegation or misconduct.
So it sounds like you either have a complaint that takes a lot of work, or one that can be resolved fairly easily.
Yeah, so we have I gave you the 4 basic adjudication codes, but then there's we have what's called BWC, which are body worn camera. And that's what we use there is we play the video, and if someone says, the officer swore, we play the video and the officer didn't swear, well, we don't need to do this big investigation, because we have a video that proves that he or she didn't swear. So we would clear it by BWC. And then there's some where we've sent to mediation. And again, that comes up to courtesy. And we have a good relationship with a group, a husband and a wife called the Cannons. And they do their own mediation, and they don't discuss the cases with us. We kind of give them a brief overview of what happened. And let's use courtesy, for example. Someone says, yes, this person is discourteous. The officer says, no, I wasn't discourteous. And like Ms. King said, a lot of times officers are having a bad day. Maybe the citizen's having a bad day, or they both are.
Yes,
And it normally is a bad day sometimes for a lot of people. See, we have to remember that we deal with thousands of people yearly. Sometimes a person may only deal with an officer once in their entire life, maybe, and that's traumatic for them. It doesn't matter if it's a speeding ticket. So both people could be having bad days. Well, mediation is a good way for the two people to sit down and explain. It's not, you don't have to sit there and say, hey, I messed up or I messed up, but you can kind of talk through the problem and say, hey, look, this is where I was coming from. Your tag was out. And then this, the citizen can say, well, I was on the phone with my grandchildren. They were being bad at the house. And you can explain it, and then it comes to, and as opposed to two people who are mad at the police and mad at the citizen and nothing ever gets resolved. So that's another way we clear cases is through mediation.
So you also at the Police Citizens Review Board get people who are really angry about something that's valid, and other people who just, like you said, were having a bad day. Which do you get most of?
Pretty much we get, it's really a mix. I can't say one way or the other, but one of the things that I am most proud of with our board is that while the police department may not see it the way we do, our diversity allows us to say, well, maybe it was within the law, but maybe the officer could have done something different, been more kind, didn't have to say this or say that, or use his authority to talk a certain way. So those are the things that we've really mostly come in contact with the people who are saying, the officer didn't, he like you said, courtesy, didn't treat me right, or he didn't have to be that abrupt, or didn't have to talk to me like that. So that happens a lot. And the video footage, the body worn cameras, that tells everything. And so it's easy for us to look at it. And in most cases, we do come to some type of agreement.
Well, that's great. In this show, entitled Building Bridges, one of the things we want to see most is the people to understand where the officer is coming from, the officer to understand where the people are coming from. So I don't know which group you work on first. Maybe the two of you know.
I think the people need to understand, and just coming out of the Police Citizens Academy, I think that the citizens need to understand, first of all, split decisions, second, decisions. That's like major. You don't know, you're going out there and you don't know what you're going to come up to. And if you got a person that's kind of irate, you're fearful too. So I would think that we would want the citizens to have a better understanding of maybe why some police officers do what they do, and it's really not personal.
Okay, so you just talked about going to the review board or to the academy. How do you get people to come to that?
Well, I mean, you just went through this Citizens Academy. I don't know how
it is.
got...
Actually, you have to apply, and they select. A lot of people do apply, but they only select 12 to 13, I think. Oh, so it's a selection process, and they look at your resume, your background, and other stuff, and then they make a selection.
What are they looking for?
Now that I don't know. I'm not sure.
A lot of it probably has to do with that. We do need to make sure that, because they get to do some things that most citizens can't just sign up to do. It's not like a ride-along program. We're kind of giving them some information. It's not top secret, but it needs to be. We need to know that the citizen has a vested interest in terms of understanding the police department as opposed to different angles. So there's a little bit of a vetting process, but if you don't have, we can't take a bunch of people with a large criminal background and things of that nature.
That would be something, wouldn't
it?
Right,
it'd be a conflict of interest. But
it'd be more than that.
Right. But it's really important. It's great that my parents went through a Citizen Academy in another city, and I think it's a great way for citizens to understand kind of what we go through on a daily basis.
Well, that's cool. And so I hope you are encouraging people to go through the academy.
I am. I actually posted it on Facebook today.
Oh.
And it was really enlightening. But being on the police review board, I thought it was important for me to understand both sides. So that's why I decided.
So do you have a clearer understanding now after the academy?
It's very clear. I also went through the Citizens Academy, so I have both. And that part of that is dealing with the police too. So I think I have a much clearer understanding.
I think you need to give her a badge or something for all the work she's been through.
And a gun. No,
I'm
just kidding.
But I think it's great, and like I said, it's not just so she can say, well, understand that the police, kind of don't make mistakes, but it's just to get a wholesome picture. I spent some time on the SWAT team. I was a canine officer for several years. I spent time in the field, so I'm able to also, like she's able to bring a different perspective. In professional standards, I'm able to bring a different perspective in understanding what certain officers go through with those split-second decisions.
Wow,
So.
you make my head swim.
And Sandra, one of the things I like about it is the attorneys are there. If we get confused and want to know if this is legal, or we can ask them questions while we're there. And also, the citizens have the opportunity to come to the meeting and they can file their complaint on the spot before the meeting, which is something new. We didn't have that before.
Well, both of your organizations obviously mean an awful lot to the police department and the citizens. And we thank you both for your contributions to police oversight, and you've been very, very helpful in explaining about how police themselves. Next, we'll meet two professional mediators who bring a unique skill to help resolve complaints. We'll touch on it briefly, mediation. We'll learn more about that after this short break, so stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Building Bridges, a monthly show that brings together police officers and community members to make our city safer. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Today we're talking about police oversight and the complaint process. Now, we've heard a lot about the investigative process and the Police Citizens Review Board. Now we're going to hear from two people who serve a unique role in resolving complaints. Joining me are Rob and Jan Cannon, two professional mediators who connect complainants with police officers to discuss their concerns and points of view. Welcome to our show today.
Thank you.
They say you're professional mediators, so you don't just work with police. Is that right?
We work primarily with the police. Mediation is a part-time job for us. We're both actually retired college professors.
Okay, all right. And so are you missing having your students, or is the police department enough for you?
Well, I'm actually teaching this semester, so I have
okay.
students. And we also do some community mediation over in Alamance County for the district court over there through their dispute settlement center. And I do also some mediation for the Office of State Human Resources.
Oh, okay, so you're still very busy.
Yes.
Are you having to mediate when you're at home or not?
Oh, absolutely. And mediation is all about listening to the other person, and Jan is always right.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be like, right? Okay, good, very good. You're doing a good job so far. Tell me a little bit more about your work with the police department.
A little over 2 years ago, Chief Miller got the idea to start mediation as an alternative way to address some complaints that citizens make about police officers. And those are particularly complaints having to do with courtesy, accusations of racial profiling, things related to that personal interaction between the police officer and the citizen.
So if a person chooses to mediate a complaint, how do they start? Where do they go?
Well, the complaint, as you've already heard, goes to professional standards. The professional standards assigns it to a sergeant who does some preliminary investigation. And if the sergeant thinks that the case would be suitable for mediation, which allows both the officer and the citizen to come together to talk about what happened and their views. Then the sergeants of professional standards refer the case to us, and then we take responsibility. Jan takes primary responsibility for organizing an opportunity for the two people to come together, and we try to do this in a neutral space, generally in public library or community centers, and then the officer and the citizen at the sort of citizen schedule as best as possible come together for a time to discuss the issues that led to the complaint.
Now, do you find this to be a very effective way to handle complaints?
Yeah, I think it is. The vast majority of the complaints that have been dealt with through the mediation program have ended up with a satisfactory resolution. I think that most of the time both the citizen and the officer end up learning something from the conversation.
And that's important, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. And our role as mediators is to help people have difficult conversations. So we don't give advice, we don't tell them what they should be doing or thinking, and in those conversations we don't talk about evidence. The goal is for each of them to get a better insight into the point of view of the other person.
So do you think mediation like this is the best way to do it? Is it working well?
Well, in terms of, Chief Miller got this program started, and professional standards, the captain at the time, Captain Cheek and Lieutenant Terry, kind of pushed it forward. They brought in a consultant from Denver which has had a very long-standing program. And then after Chief Miller left, Chief Scott is very supportive of the program, and Captain Cranford, as the captain for professional standards, as well as Lieutenant Holder, Leslie Holder, are also very supportive. And the sergeants are very good about doing this. And again, as you heard, many of the cases that we mediate are these courtesy complaints.
I see.
And
Isn't that something?
well, you know.
What's that say about human beings?
Well, I think it says that in times and occasions when people are where they're tense situations, and people often are upset, and then hopefully the mediation process, which, you know, usually we get them to the mediation table often 2 to 3 weeks later. Often they've calmed down a bit. What we notice often is during the course of the conversation between the officer and the citizen, body language changes. The citizen, and they typically at the end, they shake hands at the end.
Instead of doing this,
Exactly,
they do that.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that works pretty good.
And we've been doing this now, I think it's 2 years in July, it's just this past July. So, and we've had our success rate is on the order of 60% of the cases that have come to us have mediated successfully. So we have had very few cases where the mediation failed.
Suppose someone is listening to us and saying, you know, I've been bugged about this complaint I have for a long time. How do they find you, or what's the process for getting into a mediation?
The process would be to raise the complaint with the police department, with professional standards. And then they have a set of criteria for which kinds of complaints are appropriate for mediation. So it's really the investigators in professional standards that make an assessment about whether mediation is the right approach for resolving a given complaint.
Now, this show is all about building bridges, bringing citizens and police together and understanding each other. Can you think of anything you wish people would step forward and talk about more than what you're seeing? I know courtesy is a big one.
I think that I think as the issues that were raised earlier, in the sense that often citizens don't know much about police procedures.
Right.
People come from out of state to North Carolina. Often the rules and regulations and procedures are different in those places, and so they unfortunately might learn something new in North Carolina. It's been actually interesting for us actually to learn some new things about that we didn't know about the law. And I mean, the other interesting thing from the mediation perspective is when we go to the mediations, we don't really know much about what happened. And that's really the ideal situation from the mediator's perspective, because then we get to learn about it from the people who actually interacted. So it's much more, so we don't watch body camera footage. We're not actually taking any testimony or anything like that. We don't really want to do that. We just want to let people talk about what happened, and then hopefully listen to each other.
Is it tough to get them started, get them talking?
No.
Oh.
No, you know, but people like to be heard.
Yes, and maybe that's a problem.
But I think that almost all of the time, they welcome an opportunity to talk about something that was bothering them, and to get a response and some discussion with the police officer is helpful to them.
Otherwise, if the complaint was, if they didn't go through mediation, it's unlikely that they would have any personal interaction with the officer who they complained about.
Right, and that's not good.
Right.
You know,
That's why
because
this is
I'm
better.
just thinking what happens then is that person, if they don't go to mediation, they might talk to their friends or whatever, and then they get a whole bunch of people kind of revved up
Yeah.
about something. Is that right?
That could be.
Yeah, and what I hope is that they come to mediation, they have a good conversation with the officer, they see the officer as a person,
That's right.
and then they go and they talk to their friends about that,
Yes.
you know. So I think that it can have a larger impact.
And I have a feeling it's the other way around, that people get upset about something and they discuss it with family and friends and not with police, and then you've built this wall
Yeah.
around that particular issue. Yeah, so that's why I think Building Bridges is such an exciting program and project. And I can't tell you how much I've learned. You know, I think of police as guys that have on black uniforms and
Yeah.
they carry a gun. but you know, they're like meeting the professional standards group. That's very interesting to me, that there's a
Yeah.
lot more. Like, I never would have thought of the two of you as connected with the police department. So you've already built that bridge, right?
Yeah. Apparently, we were apparently the only people that responded to Chief Miller's. There was an article he wrote an article that was in the paper and mentioned mediation, and apparently we were the only people that responded to his. Which is fine for us.
Yeah.
We were, it was fine for us, and we've been really enjoyed sort of helping people communicate.
Jan and Rob, thank you so much for joining us, and I know you'll be busy now that people know more about you. They may be. Good.
Thank you.
Well, if you're like me, you've definitely learned a few things about how community members and GPD work together to resolve complaints about a police officer's conduct. If you'd like to know more about the process, to include mediation and the Police Citizens Review Board, you can just go to GPD's website. That's www.gsopd.org. Click on the How Are We Doing link. From there, you can lodge a complaint or submit a complaint. Thanks for watching us today, and until next time, I'm Sandra Hughes, so you be safe.
This show was funded in part by the Greensboro Police Foundation, an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance Greensboro's economic strength by promoting the safest city possible for its residents, workers, and visitors through support of the Greensboro Police Department. For more information about the Greensboro Police Foundation, visit www.greensboropolicefoundation.org.